you've been asking me what my keybinds and what my personal preferences really are for Destiny on PC. So I'm gonna compile it, try to be quick with it. I don't want to really drag it on. These are my keybinds, this is why. But before I get into that, I do want to talk about sensitivity. So play on a high DPI on my mouse. My mouse has a high DPI setting. So in majority of all my games that I play, I have a super low sensitivity. I try and live in the same realm of sensitivity in each and every game. That way it doesn't, change me up too much, and I don't, have to switch and remember, oh, this sensitivity is higher than this game. So usually I like to live around 4, 5, or 6. Depends. 3 is usually the lowest I go, but it's usually always a 4 or 5. But I usually live between the realm of 3, 4, 5, 6. My ADS sensitivity is 2 point lower than a neutral 1, because I find that when I'm flicking all over the place, especially in trials, I'm flicking my mouse over the place and I'm moving my head, my sensitivity crazy all over the screen. When I ADS and try and aim at somebody, I want to slow down and focus more on that person. So I have my ADS sensitivity scaler at a slightly lower sensitivity than my actual sensitivity. That way when I ADS, I'm focused and it's a slower movement and it's easier to hit after coming off of all that fast movement. So I play on 105 max field of view, which you probably do as well. I'm usually on 240 frames, and 2560 1440 resolution, but for purposes of making this video and so that my OBS wouldn't explode, I just dropped the resolution in frames. That way for the recording, it wouldn't up, and everything would be smooth. But with all that being said, let's talk keybinds. So obviously the movements, I don't change. WASD, it obviously is going to be neutral. That's going to be the same in all games. X I like to have as my finisher and my player highlight, because I like my finisher button to be right under my movement. So either it's usually my pointer finger, but it's either my pointer or my middle finger that I like to quickly flick to X to do a finisher. Huge in GMs, raids, it just need a quick button right near my movement to form a finisher. Emotes I don't change, arrow keys I don't plan on changing them. It is what it is. Push to talk, don't even use this, so I just kept it a T. Return the orbit was actually O. I switched it to 1 because, as we'll get to later, my open directory is actually tab. So I will press tab with my left ring finger and then press or hold 1 to go to orbit with my middle finger. So it's just easy. The buttons are right there next to each other. It's a quick ease of access, comfortability, lazy. It's really lazy because it is right there, but it's just, I just feel like it's easy lazy. So it's just, and I wasn't using the 1 key for anything, so I was like, might as well. So reload is obviously R. There's nothing to be said there. R just stands for reload. It's just what makes sense to me. I don't plan on changing that for any game. R is always reload. Don't have an auto melee. Have an uncharged melee as E. That way, and actually I think my grenade is Q. Yeah, my grenade is Q. So my thought process here, I'm actually gonna take my webcam off real quick, just so you can see the keybinds. I'm just gonna go through them really quick before I explain. So uncharged melee is E, or charged melee is E, sorry. Uncharged is gonna be one of my mouse keys. Zoom is obviously gonna be the right click. It's pretty much universal for all games. Spacebar, obviously jump. Sprint is obviously shift, and so on and so forth. I'm gonna get into more detail with these right here, and with E and Q being my grenade right now. So my thought process was, somebody who has always played on controller and always played on console all their life, especially with playing this game, I so vividly and so well associated left bumper and right bumper to be grenade melee. So I associated Q and E as my left and right bumper. So Q being my left bumper and E being my right bumper, and left bumper was grenade and right bumper was melee. So associating Q and E to those respective buttons, that's why I like to have my grenade as Q and my charge melee as E, because that's what I, associated the bumpers on the controllers as for what those buttons did respectively. E was actually interact, and I think it's by default interact for this game. I'm gonna get into what my interact key is later, because I personally did not like E being interact, but again, I'll get into that later. So charge melee E, uncharged melee is going to be my frontmost button on my mouse here. It's gonna be this one up here. And then my crouch and slide is actually gonna be the back one right here. So I got my uncharged, just melee at any time, ready responsiveness right here on the front, and then slide is on the rear of the mouse. And I like having slide on the mouse because slide and crouch on the mouse, because I feel like it's a movement that needs to be quick, and I don't like having to take my fingers off of the 4 movement keys of WASD to try and go over to C and press crouch and what have you. I just like having it on the mouse. It's just what's comfortable to me. It's fast, it's easy, so that's where it is. I like having a melee on my mouse too, but sometimes that changes from game to game. But for Destiny, I definitely keep the melee on the mouse. Moving on. Jump is obviously spacebar. Sprint's obviously shift. There's nothing to change there. I do use hold crouch instead of toggle crouch, because I'm gonna take webcam off again. So toggle crouch, you have to press the button in and then press it again to deactivate the crouch. But with hold crouch, it's like, it's a faster responsiveness, because the input recognizes you need to hold the button fully down to fully go crouched in a crouch state, but that actually allows you to manipulate it a little bit. And so what happens is I can quickly tap the crouch button, and it's almost like boxing. Like my character will do a quick head bob, like I'm trying to, dodge a right hook or a jab or what have you. Like it's a quick bob, and by manipulating it that way with hold crouch, it allows you to almost, bob up and down and move faster. That way the teabag shooting can be as toxic as possible, because we all know that that's what needs to happen, especially on PC. So if you ever wonder how PC players are bag shooting so incredibly fast, it's because of this right here. It's because of hold crouch. If you use your crouch button as toggle crouch, you will notice a difference, that you are not as fast as, teabagging, shooting, crouching as people that do hold crouch. So highly recommend doing hold crouch over toggle, especially if you can get used to holding the button down when you actually need the crouch, like in PvE for like field prep, or you just need the crouch or something. If you can just get used to holding that button down, it's super effective when you just tap it in Crucible. So if you can get that down easily, highly recommend hold crouch over toggle. That being said, moving on, class ability I have as my scroll wheel to just slide down. So Titan barricades, hunter dodges, and warlock rifts. I feel like all those class abilities for each class respectively needs to be a quick button because of how often they're used. So that's why I went with just the scroll down key, and I would have went with the click, but I'll show you right now is my air move, like Icarus Dash and Hunter Shadow Dive and the Smoke Bomb Invisibility. I use as the click instead, because that just is what feels comfortable to me, especially with being spacebar. It's kind of like you're just pressing both those buttons down that way, because like when I want to Icarus Dash really effectively, I kind of just manipulate the Warlock Glide and just like double tap spacebar real quick and then Icarus at like the same time, and it'll kind of propel me forward with more momentum. It's kind of like manipulating the system, but not really. So that's why I went with the click there. So again, class ability, I slide down, and then Icarus and what have you, I click the scroll wheel in. So my interact key is Alt, and this was a big thing for me because I didn't like the interact key being at E. It just I felt like I need to utilize all 4 of the movement keys at all times. Allowing a button to be pressed by my thumb for interact was huge for me. So much to the point where I actually changed my interact key to Alt in all my games on PC now, because I've gotten so comfortable with it. And at first it was terribly uncomfortable having it as Alt, because it was like you kind of like got your hand on the keyboard and it's kind of like contorted, like because you kind of have to turn your thumb in and hold and click the Alt key on like the inner portion of your thumb here. But if you can get used to it, I think this is the best key to have interact. And mainly what influenced me to do this was trials, because say for instance you are down in trials and I need to go res you, it allows me to run over, utilize all 4 of the WASD movement keys and keep utilizing them to be able to strafe left, right, up, or down, while also holding the Alt key to res you guys. The main reason why I did it is, you know, it allows full control over my movement regardless of what move, like where I have to move to, while also, you know, having the accessibility and the quick ease of use of my thumb to use interact. I've grown an extreme liking to Alt being interact, and it's one of my favorite keybind switches that I ever made. That being said, moving on to my super, because super used to be F, I think, by default. Hated F. Hated super being F key. I fat fingered the out of it. I mistakenly pressed it when I wanted to press another button and it pissed me off. So I wanted to move it to a key that, you know, was far enough away that I wouldn't accidentally hit it, but also close enough when I absolutely need to use it, because the super is very important in this game, obviously. And I needed it to be far away but close enough that I can use it at any time. And I felt that control, the far left portion of the keyboard, it was the best for me because it's right underneath the shift key. That way I can quickly slide my pinky finger off of shift right to control. So right from the sprint key right to the super key. This is another really big keybind switch for me that I think, you know, alters my game on PC, because it's where it's located. I know where it's located, and I know that there's a very slim chance of me fat fingering it. The only time it'll really happen is if like my finger slips off the shift key when I'm trying to sprint, but that almost never happens. It probably doesn't even happen. So another huge switch for me. Alt and control being what the keybinds were huge for me. I absolutely love them. Stasis breakout, for some reason my brain always wants to click V even though it's C, and I think it's because my finisher is X, so it's like right next to it, and I feel like in my brain when I'm looking at the screen and I'm moving my pointer finger down, I think I'm clicking X, but I'm not. So I think I'm going to change this to V, just so it's further away from my finisher button and it's not right there next to it where I think I'm accidentally hitting finisher when I'm actually hitting the stasis breakout. But you know, stasis breakout isn't even that really important anymore, so do with that what you will. This is also a this is probably my third and final huge keybind change from the keybinds that they give you by default, and that is F being my switch weapon. Again, coming from somebody who has played controller, I liked the consistency of, you know, I'm gonna take my webcam off here again so you can actually see. I liked the consistency of pressing Y and, you know, holding Y to switch to my heavy weapon, and that's why I wanted to find one singular key that I can swap between all my weapons. You know, I think it's the most comfortable for me coming from a controller, because you just always press that Y button for all of the weapon, you know, rotations. They do give you by default 2, 3, and 4. I think it's 2, 3, and 4. I don't think I switched these. I think they give you 2, 3, and 4 by default. I can't look at the keyboard and, like, you know, I need to look at my screen when I'm playing this game, and when I am trying to look like where's 2, where's 3, where's 4 on my keyboard so I know which weapon to swap to, it's too much for me. It's too much. So that's why I like having F, because it's a mindless key that I can always find, mindless action, and it's just consistent with the association I had from controller just being a Y button, one singular button, to now F, one singular button. So that's why I did that. That being said, You know, the primary fire and zoom is all going to be the same. Obviously, there's nothing going on there. That's pretty much it. Oh, in regards to like, yeah, so the UI shortcuts, I like to use, so again, tab is my ghost, like I said earlier. But I like having, where is it? I like having this, whatever squiggly key that's right next to 1 and right underneath escape and right above tab. Whatever that button is, I like having that as my quests. So because tab is already like your directory, so I just went, I wanted to utilize that key for something, and I was like, I feel like it should either be my map or my quests or something. And I find that I really like it just being a quick, you know, shortcut to my quest immediately, especially with how important quests are, like with the big expansions, Witch Queen, Lightfall. It's easy, one button press to just pull up and super accessible. So that's why I like that being there. And then I have letter U as my roster and my friends and who's on what. I have letter I as my settings, but I mean, you don't need to, because you can just press escape and then open settings. I just like it having a button for it to just, you know, that's just me. It's just a quirk of mine. It's just something I enjoy. K is my inventory, but I don't even use this. Like if I'm going to use my inventory button is F1, by the way, which I think is there by default, because I've tried to find it in the keybinds and I don't see it anywhere, like for F1 being a key. So I think it's just like universally that's your inventory button, and you could probably assign another one, like your character. Yeah, that's your character button. You could probably assign another button to be your character, but I just always used F1 because that's what I figured out it was when I first started playing, and I just still use it. So I don't even use K to go to my inventory here. I kind of just F1 and then tab over. Like there's really no point. I just keep it there anyways, you know, because it's not going to harm me in any way. I don't even press K, so it's not like it's in the way. M I use for my map. Obviously the distinction and association there is M for map. It's just easy to bring up the map quickly, or the destinations. Again, you can do it from the directory, like from tab, but I just like having it being a button. M is just easy to remember for map. It's just, you know, it's there, it's easy, why not? With all that being said, I believe that's it. I'll just scroll through with no webcam, just so you can see what everything is. You can pause the video, you know, rewind the video, do what you gotta do. It is gonna take time to find what's most comfortable for you, 100%, because it took me, I tried a lot of things. Like it was trial and error and touch and go for a long time, and I tried a lot of stuff, and this is what ultimately I have been using for months and months now. I don't think I've changed my keybinds since Witch Queen came out. I think this is what I have grown very accustomed and familiar with, and very much what I'm comfortable with. So again, this is just everything on my keybinds. You know, pause the video, fast forward, rewind, do what you gotta do. That pretty much sums it up. This is like the vehicle stuff that's not even that important, you know. It's my keybinds. I hope this helps you in some regard, especially with, you know, the alt key being interact. I don't even know if you know, do that, but I just don't like E being interact. I don't know. It's especially because I established that distinction of an association of left bumper, right bumper, and for a controller being grenade and melee, that I just associate Q and E as being bumpers now. So it's just the best thing for me. Those are my keybinds. Do with them what you will. This is easily one of the best feeling games on PC, 100%. I'm never going back to console ever. It's never happening. It's never happening.